Johnston pleaded guilty to a felony offense of obstructing officers during a civil disorder. Prosecutors say he played an active role in the riot, even using a stolen riot shield to form a shield wall against law enforcement. Johnston asked for leniency, saying he was fired from his job on Bob's Burgers and has not been able to find work after his arrest. But the judge says he failed to show remorse for his actions.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. This one is important to me, but before I tell you why, please subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button wherever you're watching, whether it's YouTube or Rumble, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever, please just subscribe. We'd love to have you on board for every episode because we want to make sure you don't miss them. And the one that we're bringing you today is a can't miss. Jay Johnston is a comedian, an actor, a really talented guy whose career started in Chicago. He ended up in Hollywood, and you may have seen him in Anchorman. You may have heard his voice in Bob's Burgers, and you may now know that he was at the Capitol on January 6th, that January 6th. And so he now will forever be known as a J6er, and it's like a brand he has on his forehead, and it has ruined his professional life. And only a very small handful of people have stood by him and supported him. You need to hear his story. We have been told one side of the narrative, but there are so many stories from the Capitol that day. And his is compelling, and it will break your heart. And hopefully it will have you tap into some level of forgiveness for so many of these people who were so mistreated by our justice system. Jay Johnston is our guest next. Jay, it is great to meet you. I'm happy to talk to sane people on this show. You are one of those people. And, you know, it's interesting because I think the minute you're associated with January 6th or you're a J6er, people freak out. So,
yeah, myself included.
Yourself included.
Yes.
Yet you were there. What took you out there that day? Why did you want to be there?
Well, I just went there to exercise my First Amendment rights, very simply, and to stand up for people who couldn't be there. Really, it wasn't too, intricate or complicated. And I never been to a protest in my life. I was there to watch the president speak, and then I went down to the Capitol. I didn't march there. I did not march. So
you did not march. You just kind of walked or took an Uber?
That's right. Strolled.
Strolled. You strolled down to the Capitol. Why do you think you got swept up in the arrests?
Well, originally I was sort of kind of leaning to believe what the media was presenting it as. Like it had been this horrible disaster and a terrible attack on the government. I mean, not wholly, of course, but as time went on, and that's the only perspective you're getting in the media, it's pretty powerful and started to make me shift my mind over from what I had experienced to what they were pushing. And I would say that most simply, I should say, that it was an event that, was just totally, at the behest of the media to paste their own narrative on it. And that was so unfortunate because so many innocent people were wrapped up in that. And, myself included, actually. I didn't do anything like they had said, but, they blew it out of proportion for most people, including myself. And eventually I realized that they were doing it to make an example of me, and because there would be articles written about it, and they wanted to leverage the Bob's Burgers and that type of thing, into the story. So
I want to get to what you just said about how it was blown out of proportion, because I remember the day that it happened. And I remember, look, I make my home in Minneapolis, and we saw the BLM riots here, and they tried to call those mostly peaceful protests, while the city burned. So I remember thinking, wow, that's they're not portraying it the way that we're experiencing it here. And we're on lockdown. We're not allowed to go out of our houses past a certain hour. And here you were experiencing this day in Washington. First, about the president's speech, did you feel like he was sending people on a mission to go climb up on the Capitol building?
No, not in the least. Not at all. There were a few moments where he would rally the crowd towards, something he was saying in his speech of support, but there was no indication or expectation or feeling at all like it was building towards anything that would be violent or even out of hand in any regard. I mean, the funniest thing about that, watching the speech, was I was sort of weaving in and out through the crowd as people stood on the area near the ellipse, and it was people were going way, 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 way back towards the little lagoon and the Lincoln Monument. And I mean, there were just more people than I've ever seen in my life. It was absolutely incredible how many people were there. But when the people were standing watching him speak, they were all like not socially distanced, but just like politely not crowded. It was the weirdest thing. There wasn't garbage anywhere. I mean, there was like garbage cans overflowing, but there wasn't litter everywhere, It was an enormous crowd, but it was such a well-behaved crowd. I could not believe it. It made me a little uncomfortable, to be honest. I was like, aren't people supposed to be pushing or something? But it was pretty wild. And it was just people being very polite to one another and just standing, listening to him. And it was nice,
So in being there, you didn't think, oh, my career is going to be on the line here. Something's going to happen.
No, not in the least. Not in the least.
So you go, and so you meandered, strolled, lollygagged your way down to the Capitol building.
A couple times.
Okay, so what did you see? I'd love to hear what you saw, because again, and I agree with you. I think the way it was portrayed by Congress, by certain factions of the Congress, that it was just this, Sonny Hostin would have you believe it was as bad as 9/11. So what did you experience as you got there?
Well, as we were approaching, there was, it was just a constant stream of people from the speech down to the Capitol. And as I was approaching, I could hear I thought they were firecrackers going off, but they had already begun the flashbangs.
Okay.
And you could see smoke coming up from the area we were headed to. But again, I thought they were like fireworks, and people were like, yippee, or something.
Yeah.
So, that did not bleed into the people around me. Nobody had any anxiety or, apprehension about approaching the Capitol. People weren't concerned or making comments about it. And as I got closer, there was an area where you had to either walk around or kind of get over this 4-foot high wall. And some people had taken a bike rack and laid it up against, so people were walking up the bike rack. It was a little kind of difficult to get up there, and people were helping the older ladies that were going up there and the older men, and just helping them to get up the ramp thing. And it was fine, and you got into that area, and people are just standing around talking, and people had flags and everything. But I didn't know where those explosion noises came from, and I couldn't see that when I was down in that area until they started shooting them at us again, and just right into the crowd, and people were getting very worked up over that, rightly so, because they were getting hit, and this stuff is just noxious, and you can't breathe, and so it was escalated very quickly at moments, but for the most part, it was just a bunch of people that didn't seem to know what they were doing or where they were going, to be honest.
Right. How close to did you get inside the building? You've heard me talk about American Independence Gold, and I want to recommend you to go to tafoyagold.com, TAFOYA gold.com, because your future and your wealth and your financial health in essence, are too valuable to risk. So American Independence Gold is a veteran-owned company, and gold and silver for generations have protected wealth. So this is more than just about owning gold. It's protecting your wealth, protecting your financial future. And also, as a proud veteran-owned company, American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting military families. They cover custodial fees for life on qualifying accounts and donate a portion of every purchase to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Don't wait to secure your future. Act before it's too late. Visit tafoyagold.com today or call 833-324-4653. It's right there on your screen. It's in the show notes. 833-324-4653 or tafoyagold.com. Make the smart move for your future today. Visit tafoyagold.com.
No, I did not go in the Capitol. I was in the back, the Rotunda area, I believe it is. And I went to, there was like a vestibule, they call it the tunnel. And there was maybe 12 feet of the this vestibule area before you would hit these doors that then you would go into the back area of the Capitol. And I was in that tunnel area for a couple minutes, and it was very violent in there, and I got kind of stuck in there. But
when you say very violent, what do you mean? What did you see?
Well, there were people just, there was a police line in there, and it was maybe 5 to 6 officers thick, and they were all just trying to keep everybody from going in the Capitol, and they were fighting with people that were right there occasionally when these people would start fighting with the cops, because the police aren't advancing. I mean, they're just standing there.
Right.
So they're not going to start fighting unless they're being attacked.
Right.
And
some people did attack?
Yeah, people came in there and were willfully, engaging in violence. And, that's not why I was there. And I was hoping to diffuse that occasionally with my presence and like taking the place of somebody who was violent,
Right.
Because I saw no need for that. So, or reason to do that. So, there were people fighting and taking the shields from the police and stuff. And, it was a melee, really, and people came and pushed in and were pressing in and kind of got people stuck in there. But I would say it would be 50% or more people in that area were not wanting to be in there and not there to fight. They were trying to get out. They were screaming, trying to move, and you were just crushed and you couldn't move. So it was unfortunate.
It makes me think, Jay, about some of these allegations. These people would call them conspiracy theories about other people.
Oh, there were aliens there, UFOs all over the place.
Oh, UFOs everywhere. But this notion of whether it was Antifa, whether it was actually plants from the FBI being in there to cause that trouble. And again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I will
jump the gun on that and say definitely, because it was something I learned and I look back in retrospect, and I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing at the time because I didn't attribute it to that or know that was possible there. There were people who did very much in retrospect seem like they were instigators and there for other reasons than I was there. People who came to do battle with the police and would start things, and I did also see a handful of times where the police started a skirmish or something, excessive force, or when a rioter who was just yelling at him would turn around and say something to the crowd and they would get clubbed in the back of the head, which is not procedure, I don't think, not correct procedure. So
I'm guessing not, yeah.
Yeah, and then people would just be enraged at that, and then they would press forward. But there were a lot of instances of, like one in very specifically, I was standing watching the outside of the tunnel, and people were kind of pushing in there, and I was standing back just chatting with someone whom I didn't know, and I was making a joke about something we were looking at, and this guy came running up to us and go, "Oh, did you hear this girl, like 17-year-old girl, was shot in the back of the head inside the Capitol, and she's bleeding, and they're calling the police or the paramedics." And we're like, "Oh boy, I know, we didn't hear that." And then he moved to the next kind of group of people and started the same spiel over again. I thought that was kind of odd how he was just peppering the crowd with that information, and later to put it together. Of course, he was trying to help the chaotic environment or moment kind of spread. So he had all the stuff wrong. He was talking about Ashley Babbitt,
Yeah.
but I think she had passed at that time. But he was saying it was just happening, and that's how we learned about something inside, gun being discharged, and it made people nervous a little bit, but it was the way he was telling people and just like spreading it was very odd. And I think that there were a lot of assets or CHSs, confidential human sources, or agents or something in the crowd, and it makes a lot of sense that there would have been agent provocateurs and that type of thing.
I've been referencing this comedian I saw recently because what he said was so fitting. He said, okay, there are conspiracy theories, and you don't have to believe all of them, but you don't believe any of them. Have you seen that?
Show.
Yes.
I heard him on your show yesterday.
Oh, thanks for watching.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious.
Wasn't that priceless? He's like, that's a pretty strong stance to take if you don't believe in any of them. Like the government's batting 1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Batting 1,000.
Yeah.
And you have kids.
Yeah.
Have you ever lied to your kids?
Exactly. He's priceless. So I think it's fair to consider some of these allegations that others are making, just as it's fair to consider that there were probably a few Trump fanatics in the crowd who may also have been doing some crappy stuff. How did you finally decide to leave, and how did you extricate yourself?
Well, it was basically decided to leave after I had got stuck in that tunnel for a bit and got kind of squished in there. I was like, woo, I'm out of there, and I'm pretty much, I don't need to be here anymore because this is going south, and it has in a few places. But it was not a constant riotous situation. It was just pockets of violence here and there. But of course, the media, all they're going to show are the highlights. So they're going to show one moment of violence backed up with another moment of violence, and violence throughout is what people think it was. So when it ended, it sort of petered out.
Yeah. So that must have been interesting for you to have been there and then to go turn on the news and see how it was portrayed.
That was the biggest thing. Yeah. I mean,
I can't even so you turn it on and you're seeing this, and I mean, what are you saying to yourself as you're watching the way this was portrayed?
Well, there's a lot of eye rolling, I'll tell you that much. And I was there with a couple of friends, and I was saying I couldn't believe how I had never experienced anything where the media got a hold of it and completely changed the entire experience for anybody else to learn about it or to hear about it. And it at that time, I had no idea it would go as far as it has, of course. I don't think anyone did. But even the idea that we would be vilified on the most basic level was not entirely apparent to me at the time. That I learned real quick that that's what was coming, though. But I gotta say, I just was not cynical enough to to imagine that they could have taken it as far as they have. Certainly.
So that's January. When do you finally learn that you're caught up in this and you're going to be arrested?
Well, of course, I was listening to the news and hearing about all the arrests and just, like, when's it going to happen? And I thought, okay, maybe I've missed the big storm in the beginning, and maybe I'm just lucky and just sort of it's going to pass over me. But it was about March that the FBI put me on the most wanted list with other J6ers. And that was, that was pretty much it for my career was kaput at that time. So.
Oh my God. Seriously, you were on the FBI most wanted list. Yeah.
They put me up there and said, does anybody know the name of this person? They had pictures from some video that someone was taking. This person's wanted for, assault on a federal officer, violence at the Capitol, and all that type of stuff. And I was like, oh boy.
That had to make you sick. You tell me.
Yeah, it was crazy. A friend of mine called me like 8:30 in the morning from Chicago. I'm in Los Angeles, and he said, "Have you seen Twitter today?" And I was like, "I was not on any social media." because I kind of, through the grapevine, heard that would be dangerous. If you make any mention of the Capitol, then they'll come for you and whatever. And so I wasn't on anything, and just found out, boom, that, it was put out there. And a bunch of people that were actually friends of mine turned me in immediately. Oh, that's Jay Johnston from this show or whatever. And it was that led to a quick decline.
Oh my God! So then what happened? What?
Well, then the media reported that I had been there, and the allegations that I had committed these violent acts, and that then they reported on me being fired from Bob's Burgers and that type of thing. And I thought, oh boy, that's pretty unfortunate, but I haven't heard anything. So I contacted my agent, and my agent said, well, we don't know. But we're firing you. So they got rid of me. And then I just, gleaned that I was fired. And that's what happened. So I was never told, and nobody called ever. It was just through the media that I found out. So
that's classy.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
really...
And then, of course, the media is reporting, completely blacklisted through, all industry-wide blacklisting. So.
And what I hear this, and I can't even imagine what that must have been like for a person in your shoes. You're an entertainer. You've carved out this career for yourself, and you're hearing this, and it's all coming at you through the media. No one has the guts to call you directly and say, "Hey, here's the deal." So what is that? What was that like? I mean, I could ask you how you felt, what you thought, but that had to be really dark.
Yeah, it's very odd because it, there are times where in Los Angeles, most specifically, I've found that it can be kind of isolating out here because it's not like Chicago, where I'm from, where a lot of people are in the city, of course, and they're closer together because you have higher, high rises and apartment buildings and that type of thing. And it's just all spread out here. So there's you can be isolated a bit. And it was just very isolating to have that happen because all my friends disappeared overnight. And it was like to the man, like everyone was gone. Nobody reached out, and it's been that way for 4 years. And it's just it
remains that way, Jay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's pretty sobering. But people just shutter their windows and close their doors and act like they've never met you. So,
my God,
yeah, it's incredible.
I have to believe. Well, no, I guess I don't have to. You tell me again. Who has stuck by you?
Well, a friend from Chicago and another friend that I know in New York, and of course my fiance and my cat and dog.
Okay, that's good. We're piling a list here.
Yeah,
that's good.
Right. I mean, unfortunately, I do have to count the cat and dog on my friend list, but whatever.
Well, we've also had on this podcast Nick Searcy, and we've had Siaka Masqua,
awesome.
and I know they were both there. Is there a group in Hollywood at all that
Nick has been incredible. He really has. He's reached out many times and been very, very, offering friendship and support, and just wonderful, just fantastic. And his attitude is the best. He's like, those guys should just up the hootsy wootsy, whatever. He's got very colorful language, and he'll let you know exactly how he feels, and that's great.
So Jay, what does your future look like? I'm thrilled to hear you're engaged to be married, and that you have a cat and a dog. But I'm pretty certain you'd love to work again. What's the prognosis?
Well, as you can imagine, people out here are not interested in jumping in with both feet into anything unless it's on the left. But any type of olive branch or attempt to reach out to say, let's let bygones be bygones or anything. That's not come up yet at all. I think they're very timid hesitant, unable to consider that they may have been a little misled, which is unfortunate. And it's pretty thick. It's pretty down to the foundation of the way people think out here, and it's unfortunate. So I don't know when that might break, but it seems that if I'm going to do anything, it'll have to be something that is
self-produced or self-funded. Yeah.
So,
what did it mean to you to be pardoned?
what did it mean? Is that
what did? Yeah, just kind of. I realize that there's been so much bad that's happened, but when you get a pardon, which I'm assuming you were among those pardoned, yeah?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Of course, it was something that was a rumor until it happened, and that's exactly how I thought about it, because there were many other times where I could be perhaps optimistic about what would happen in the next step, and so far, up until that point, everything had gone twice or three times worse than I thought it would. So my optimism was a little dented. But once the pardons came in, it was I was sort of in a daze for a few days, because it was a little overwhelmingly emotional, and the relief was incredible. But it just puts things in an odd perspective or light at that point, where you realize it was all for naught anyway, and
like all the crap you had to go through.
Yeah,
it ultimately gets erased from your record, but you still had to go through it.
And the people in my life had to go through just nonsense. My fiance was fired from her job. And,
for being your fiance, basically, right?
By association. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it's that was. I didn't feel like I could reach out to old friends of mine, because I was afraid I would bleed into their life and hurt their life somehow. But the only way that could happen is if they would come contact me. But I believe they thought the same thing. They didn't want to get dirt on their hands. So, it's very, looking back on it, it's, thank God he did that. And, with a pardon, unfortunately, you get pardoned and you don't go to jail and that type of thing. I was supposed to go in to prison in about 2 weeks, and that pardon came through. So I was just very blessed that happened. But it doesn't take it off your record. So you would still have on your record that you had a felony on your record and that type of thing. But luckily, the day after the pardon, they also dismissed my case, which means that I don't have a felony and was never convicted or anything. So
I mean, it's just I don't know. I'm so angry about it on your behalf. I don't, you and I've just met, but this is so painful to hear that someone could build a life, build a career, and basically be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And be painted as this villainous extremist, whatever they wanted to call you, right? Mm-hmm. I can't imagine it. And so I'm just really hopeful. Look, Mel Gibson seems to be getting resuscitated. So I would think that you could too, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. So I have to go and meet with him and ask him his plan on converting Hollywood.
Right. Him and Sly Stallone, right? They're gonna, you need to get in front of them. I think that there would be people, and I'm hoping that a lot of people will hear this. And I know you've done other interviews, and I think you should keep doing it. I think this is going to be this bizarre chapter in American history. I really do, that will be looked back on, and people will be going, wait a minute, what? One side was saying this, and the other side did this, and maybe, I don't know. Do you feel as though that now Trump is back in office, and he's, Pam Bondi's there at the Justice Department, and things are being gone through with a fine tooth comb? Do you think there's any chance that some of the,
hope.
Do you like that some stuff might get exposed here? So I think there are a lot of people out there who could use a better night's sleep, and there's an easy way to get one, and it's just a wonderfully relaxing way to get a good night's sleep. It's called Sleep Cream. And when I first found out about it, I was a little skeptical. I'll be honest with you, but it's not a drug. It's not a prescription. It's something you apply to your skin at bedtime and it relaxes you. I sleep great with this stuff. I keep it in my, by my nightstand. I keep it in the house because I love it. It's Sleep Cream, CREME. They use all natural CBD combined with the finest essential oils. I love the scent of these things. I'll put it on like the insides of my wrists and forearms and elbows at night. Some people put it on the bottoms of their feet. Let me read you an email that we got from a user, Christy L. Using Sleep Cream helps me get a good night's sleep and get more deep sleep. When I have stressful days, I use a little extra to ensure I get a solid night's sleep. I usually sleep through the night with the Sleep Cream. I am very grateful. So am I. And so can you be. Give it a try. If it doesn't work for you, you can get your full refund, get your money back, full refund, guaranteed, no questions asked. You don't even have to return the product. So you can find them at sleepcream.com, sleepcreme.com. Try it for a couple nights. Again, money back guaranteed if you don't like it. Sleepcream.com, CREME for the next few weeks. Use the code GAMEDAY at checkout. Game Day, all one term, to get free standard shipping on your first order. That's Game Day at checkout. Sleep Cream. If you're ready for your best night's sleep ever, and who's not, go to sleepcream.com, sleepcreme.com.
Yeah. Kash Patel was saying that he was going to do a big investigation and stuff, and that unfortunately, I have to say that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But I believe in him, and I hope he does what he said he would do. And it's time for that to occur, because unless there is some type of responsibility or accountability, for what happened, then if we don't have that, then it may not have even existed. It may not ever be noted in our history that this occurred, and it was a horrible thing. The people involved, some people got so punished so horribly for this, and I feel very fortunate for what happened to me in a sense. Just the other day, there was an anniversary. It was the day before yesterday. A man who was convicted to spend about 6 months to a year in prison, and just before he was going to get sentenced, they added an enhancement of terrorism to his charges, and that vaulted him to over 10 years, and he hung himself on that news. And the prosecutors remarked, wow, if he had just waited, it was really, I don't think the judge would have gone through with that. It was really, not something that
the prosecutor said that?
Yeah, prosecutor. And it's terrible. Matthew Perna was his name. And his aunt, Jerry Perna, has been going, on every outlet she can for the last 4 years and trying to get the word out about that, because so many people were so devastated by this mess that it's that bad. And there was 5 other J6ers that committed suicide.
Yeah, they love to talk about
the police.
Yes, and
yeah. They weren't.
They don't talk about Ashley Babbitt. They don't talk about the people who were hit with those flashbangs. They don't talk about this, and that this was really unjust. It just was unjust. And, I'm not talking about the guy with the horns who went down and sat in Pelosi's chair or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you and people like you. And it seems like even people like Nick Searcy's film that he put out was so important. And I watched it and I thought, holy crap, this is a whole different,
other way you know that. Yeah.
There's no other way you'd know that. And that, exactly. and of course, there are people who are going to say, well, he was totally biased. And you're going, well, they hired a television producer to produce the hearings in front of Congress. So this presentation that they put together. It's really weird. I've always believed in America and believed in our justice system. And this is, I can't believe how much is this shaking your faith? Hey, keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. How much is this shaking your faith?
Well, it was very damaging to that, and it was crumbling all along the process. Like, well, surely it's going to right itself at some point, and at this next stage or step in the process, something will happen that'll make some sense, but it never really did. And kind of a funny thing was, I mean, it's only funny because everything's over at this point. But I went to DC for my sentencing hearing, and when I got into court, I looked down at they give you what's called a sentencing memorandum, which is a plea from the prosecutors to the judge to give him more time and give him a harsher sentence and all this other stuff. I thought I was looking at maybe 6 months in prison, and on the first page of my charging memorandum was a picture of me from 2 years prior at a Halloween party where I dressed as the QAnon shaman, the Jacob Jansley guy with the furry hat and the horns. And it was a great costume, and it was just a joke, and it was a private party, but they got, somebody snuck a picture of me, sold it to the Hollywood Reporter, and then it ended up on my sentencing memorandum, and the judge gave me a year and a day, which I did not expect. I thought maybe 3 to 6 months, and I got a year because he was like, obviously he doesn't take these proceedings seriously and wants to make jokes about it. And it's like,
oh my God, this is remarkable and depressing. And I do feel, and I hope you feel, like there's a fog that's starting to lift around you and around those who went through what you did.
Absolutely. The pardons made the biggest difference in the world, but unfortunately for the people involved, if you can imagine, people were in jail for 2-3 years, 1 year. Yeah. Pardon gets them out of jail. Now they have to start all over again. They lost their house. Yeah. They lost maybe their marriage, their business, their jobs, definitely. What do they do? I mean, they're starting all over again now. So I was working with this charitable organization, Patriot Freedom Project, and they were just wonderful helping out J6 families. And, after the pardon, everyone's like, okay, well, that's great. And then no one donates to the charity anymore because they think the whole thing's over, but it's just begun for a lot of these people. I mean, 1,500 people charged, 600 in jail, and these people get out and they have nothing. And they
get out to nothing. I'm looking for a pen, but just repeat that. Repeat that charity again for everyone.
The Patriot Freedom Project, patriotfreedomproject.com. And they helped us out when things were really, really bleak. And it was wonderful. They helped me get to Washington, D.C. for my hearing. Just indispensable help, and my fiance is an artist, and she did this awesome portrait of Trump called Unbreakable, and it was a very stern look, and it was sort of like an old silver, daguerreotype photograph, and it was really an awesome portrait, and she's a painter, and just to give back to the charity so they could auction that for other J6 families, and they're still going to be doing that auction, so that's wonderful. And they're just such a great group of people, and very committed to the helping out J6 families. So
we will put that in the show notes so that people can go check
wonderful.
It out.
Awesome.
It's. I saw you do stand up long ago. I became a massive fan, and
awesome.
I am so sorry you went through this. And my heart is kind of breaking inside because it's so agonizing to hear these stories from people who really did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And for political reasons in the United freaking States of America went through what you went through is sort of impossible to believe. Jay, I hope we talk again. I wish you nothing but the best, and continue to be brave and do good.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking with you.